It's good, you too, man. I'm back with another banger reaction video today. We're reacting to 4 most disturbing Reddit confessions. Let's get right into this shit, man. Before we get started, though, make sure you roll up, scroll up, and let's get fried. Let's get this shit started.
On May 8th, 2025, a Reddit user asked a grim yet straightforward question on r/AskReddit, stating, What is the most messed up thing you have ever done?
Yo, let me know in the comments down below. What is the most messed up thing you ever done? Make sure y'all are anonymous, you feel me?
Initially, replies to this were filled with either obvious jokes or relatively tame confessions involving relationship drama. However, after about 30 minutes of the post being live, one user replied with a disturbing comment that stood out from the rest.
What the fuck?
It read, I ran over a woman and her child in California in '96. I don't remember the specific city, but I'll never forget it was the intersection between Vanowin Street and Louis Avenue.
Jesus.
I think the mom died, but I don't remember what happened to the kid.
Why
I
would
got
you
away
even admit
scot-free,
this?
and I'm only telling this because the statute of limitations already passed.
Oh.
Now, it's not uncommon for people to just make up shocking stories on Reddit for attention. And at first this didn't look any different until another user did some digging and discovered an LA Times article from July of 1996 about what seemed like the same incident mentioned in the comment. That article, along with others from the time, not only confirmed the OP's claims, but also revealed the horrifying details of what actually happened that day. According to the reports, the victims of this incident were a 19-year-old girl named Ruby Moreno and her 1-year-old daughter. Ruby had taken her daughter to a nearby hospital on the morning of July 29 to treat a few minor cuts she got while playing. She stopped at a relative's house on Vanowin Street on her way back and was about to return home at around 10 p.m. But as she was attempting to get into her car on the driver's side, she heard a loud screeching noise from behind.
You did it.
Right when that shit's getting juicy, bro. What the fuck?
But at US Bank, we remember.
She looked back and saw a car barreling towards her at 100 miles per hour. According to other witnesses, this car had swerved to avoid hitting a van just seconds earlier, causing it to lose control. Seeing this, Ruby panicked and started running from the speeding car with her daughter still in her arms. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on her side that day. Before she could reach the sidewalk, she tripped into the street and was struck by the car moments later. The impact sent her flying over a parked car and onto the roof of another.
Holy shit!
The baby was also tossed several feet into the air before falling on the asphalt. Miraculously, the baby didn't receive any lethal injuries and was able to survive without any lasting damage to her body. Ruby, however, wasn't as fortunate. She was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to her injuries the same night. As for the driver that hit her, witnesses reported him trying to flee the scene, hitting another parked car and then a curb before successfully getting away.
Must have been sauce.
And from everything I could find, the perpetrator was never identified or arrested.
How?
So if this Reddit user was telling the truth, there's a real chance he was the driver behind the brutal hit and run nearly 3 decades ago. The report from 1996 also mentioned that the driver was likely intoxicated due to the way he behaved after hitting Ruby.
That's insane.
And when asked, the user admitted that this was the case. Were you drunk at the time, as the article says, or were they wrong about that? Inebriated, sure. More high than drunk. I was on a lot of junk back there. But the most disturbing part of his confession was just how cold and remorseless he seemed about the entire incident.
Yeah.
Why no sympathy? Was this on purpose? No, but it's been so long. It's like a whisper of a memory.
How?
Do you think about how that child has to live without a mother now? Genuinely asking, you seem stone cold. It's been 30 years. That child probably has children of its own. I seem stone cold because I've already been through all the stages of emotions. I've justified myself, I rotted with guilt, I've had sleepless nights. I'm an old man now and I'm waiting to die any moment. I can't change what I did. I can't even pay for my crime anymore because
So if he says if he's an old man waiting to die right now, say he's like 80 to 90, that's 30, it's been 30 years. So bro, he was like 60. And he hit and killed someone, and just let that just took it to the fucking not even, bro. He didn't. I was about to say he took it to the grave, but he didn't even take it to the grave. How do you? Why do you even say something like that, bro? I take that shit to the grave, bro. Bro, that's incredible.
California doesn't send people.
Bro, I'm thinking, how did they not even find him? How did they not try? Maybe there was no cameras and shit back then, but still, though, there's witnesses and shit. How do you not track down this person? He hit a bunch of cars. How do you not track him down? That makes no sense.
Only on a confession.
Maybe I'm tripping.
And
now.
regardless, my health alone would render me incompetent to stand trial. There's nothing tying me back to that day but my word. Which brings us to the big question, was the OP actually telling the truth? Unfortunately, the answer to this is a bit more complicated than it initially seems. For starters, his story does match an actual incident that happened back in 1996, right down to the exact intersection he mentioned in his confession. He also added several details that didn't seem made up, and even gave a reason for why he was finally willing to confess now, because the statute of limitations had long expired. That said, there also seems to be some potential inconsistencies. Some reports claim the driver was with another passenger, and that they actually fled on foot. However, the OP not only didn't mention any passenger, but also claimed that he still had the car. He even cited its damaged
But bro, I feel like it's really fucked up if you sit there and lie about hitting and killing someone. I feel like that's fucked up. Because if you're sitting there lying about it, you're like trying to talk it into existence. And that's super fucked, bro. I think it's worse if you're sitting there lying about it. Because you want it to happen. But maybe it's not worse. It's probably, I'm tripping.
Condition as the reason he became aware of the accident, writing, "What was your reaction to what happened? I was too hopped up on various types of drugs to notice. It was only the day after when I saw the dried blood on my bumper." This could point to the possibility that the OP wasn't behind Ruby's accident at all. He maybe stumbled upon the 1996 article online, memorized key details like the year and the street name to make it seem real, and then fabricated the rest of the story as users pressed him with more questions.
But why?
All just to get some attention on the internet. But at the end of the day, we don't know. Although if he was telling the truth, several users have already alerted California authorities of his comments.
Bro, that's fucked up.
We have got to the
Why
point
would you sit
where
there and
literally
lie about it?
anybody
I feel
build a
that's
fully
fucked.
working app without knowing
You
how
guys
to
think
code.
he did it?
This
I
is
feel like
base
he had to
44.
have done it, bro. You don't sit there and just lie
In May
about
of
that shit. It's fucked
2012,
up.
a Reddit user asked others to share a secret which,
Bro,
if
wait,
came
Tyler,
out,
what is
could
your
ruin their
secret that you could
lives.
ruin your life if
And
it
while
comes
this
out?
post received over 44,000 comments in total,
God
one
damn, a lot
chilling
of
confession
motherfuckers.
stood out above the rest. About 9 hours after the original post went up, a user replied with a haunting story of his own, reading, "I accidentally killed 7 people.
How the fuck do
I
you
put a
accidentally
rag
do
into
that?
a new water heater exhaust to keep debris out and installed it in a rental. I get a call a week later. There's been an accident.
What?
I show up and there's a ton of EMS and police. They ask me where the gas shutoff is, and I go down to shut the gas off and see the end of the rag I forgot sticking out of the top of the heater. Rip the rag out, shut the gas off, and headed upstairs, only to be told all the tenants were dead. I drink all day now and sleep. It's killing me from the inside every single day, but if I say anything, my family is ruined. We have a bunch of rental properties and we'd be shut down." This reply caught the attention of thousands of other users who wanted more details on what exactly happened. Unfortunately for them, the account that posted this was a throwaway, and the OP didn't post a single comment after that, possibly to avoid incriminating himself any further.
What the
But
fuck?
when users didn't get the answers they were looking for from the OP,
how do you accidentally kill 7 people in a house? I know you were working on the house, but how do you forget a rag that's on the top? It's like, bro, if you're a plumber or something, bro, you know what can catch on fire, what cannot, and you let that shit happen, bro. You're an idiot.
they began looking outward, and it didn't take long for someone to track down the news article talking about the tragic accident. According to these reports, the incident took place on December 16, 2006 in Kirksville, Missouri, where 7 victims, including 5 young adults and 2 children, passed away in their sleep due to carbon monoxide poisoning. However, while this part matched what the OP said in his comment, the conclusion the investigators reached was completely different. In his report, the police chief superheading the investigation stated that the heating system was functioning properly and was not the source of any problem. Instead, one of the victims' vans was left running in the closed garage. This generated a lot of carbon monoxide throughout the night, which slowly filled up the apartment and eventually ended up taking the resident's life. So, did the OP really get away with killing 7 innocent people because of his gross negligence? Sadly, the answer is not as clear-cut as many would hope. There are multiple possibilities, and any one of them could be true.
Do you guys think he did it, or you guys think it's what the cops said? It could have just been the car, in the garage, and he's just taking the blame for it, or it could have really been what he did. Because, bro, he knows how shit goes. Like, he left the rag.
For instance, if we assume that OP was telling the truth from his perspective, it's completely possible that the accident did have nothing to do with the heating system. But since the OP saw the rag stuck in the heater, he assumed it was his fault and has been blaming himself ever since. On the other hand, there's also a chance that everything unfolded exactly as the investigation concluded. OP just took this real accident and made up the story about him forgetting the rag for attention on Reddit. This would also explain why the police would let him casually walk into a potential crime scene without any supervision. We can even take this a step further and assume that the OP wasn't even the landlord and just read about the incident online. That all said, it's still completely possible this story is legit and that the rag was the cause of the deaths, or perhaps a combination of the van and the rag. The OP hasn't posted any new updates on his throwaway account in the last 13 years. So whatever the truth is, we may never know for sure.
Obviously.
On May 2nd, 2017, users on the Canada News subreddit came across a lengthy post titled, "Wanted for Kitchener Murder, My Side."
First of all, what the fuck is Kitchener murder? Does that mean... Alright, let me get 3 guesses here. One, obvious, he killed someone in the kitchen. He was a butcher. He killed... I'm not even gonna guess.
This was a reference to a horrific murder that took place in Kitchener, Canada just a few days earlier. And to everyone's shock, this post was written by the prime suspect, Ager Hussein. He was still on the run, but wanted to tell the internet what exactly happened on the night of the incident. However, what seemed like a desperate attempt to share his side of the story would later turn out to be a part of his plan to evade the consequences for his actions. Though, the events that led up to this started 15 months earlier in February of 2016, when 21-year-old Ager Hussein met 21-year-old Melinda Vasilier in Kitchener. The two quickly became infatuated with one another and began dating just weeks after their first encounter. However, while things went quite well for the first year or so, the two eventually started bickering and fighting with each other. This resulted in the two breaking up in April 2017 via text. And that's when things took a turn for the worse.
Oh shit,
Not long after their breakup, Ager attempted to break into Melinda's home through her patio, but was spotted by her friend Anna and her boyfriend. They also called the police on him, forcing him to leave Melinda alone. However, he kept texting her even after this incident, asking to meet her at least one last time.
Bro, if y'all men are out there like that, bro, y'all should really be in a different place, bro. A special place. In hell! Motherfuckers. Little ka-chow, ka-chow, ka-chow.
She eventually agreed and invited him to her home, hoping to talk things through and
I don't know how
motherfuckers be
doing that shit, bro. Like,
they decided to meet on the night of April 27th.
Sure want you, bro.
But when
Give
the
it
time
up.
came, Ager didn't show up. Melinda had asked her friend and sister to stay with her at home while Ager was visiting. However, since Ager was a no-show, she gave them the go-ahead to carry on with their night, and the two left. They returned shortly after midnight, and to their surprise, discovered that Ager had shown up while they were gone and was now in Melinda's room with her. The girls confirmed Melinda's safety before heading off again to get food. This trip took barely 30 minutes, but by the time they came back, things had somehow spiraled into a complete nightmare. The apartment was in complete disarray, and there was no sign of Ager anywhere. And as they stepped further into the apartment, they found Melinda lying face down on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood, with her body covered in dozens of wounds. They rushed in to check on her, but tragically, it was already too late. Melinda had no pulse. After composing themselves, they contacted the police and told them everything they knew, sparking a nationwide manhunt for Ager. However, despite days of searching, the investigators were unable to find anything about his current whereabouts. That is, until a post from Ager himself popped up on Reddit explaining everything that happened from his perspective. He opened his monologue by going over the history of his and Melinda's relationship, how they were perfect together, and that he was even planning on proposing to her before everything fell apart.
No, you weren't.
After spending a bit more time going over the timeline of the relationship, he moved on to talking about the day of the incident. And according to him, this is what happened after Melinda's friend and sister checked up on them. We continued to talk and finally decided it was worth it to try one more time. Anna and her other friend left the house to grab food. We both let everything out and our relationship was back on track.
Then what happened?
As I'm getting ready to leave, she asked me if I had done anything with any other girls while we were on a break, or any time we were on a break. I told her we needed to be honest and said yes and told her about it. She started freaking out, wouldn't say a word, just kept slapping me with tears in her eyes. Slaps turned into hits.
Fuck!
They have no
so you fucking killed her? So she slapped you and you killed her. That's what you're saying, bro.
But if she
That's
didn't
basically
stop,
what
I'd do
you're
something
saying,
back.
bro.
She didn't stop. I then stupidly pushed her harder than I expected. She fell against the sink. This was the first time I ever did something physically violent towards her.
You're lying.
I told her I was sorry. She said,
How is there a
"Leave,
bunch
leave
of
now."
wounds then?
I began saying sorry even more and asked if I could get a hug. She was still crying. I go up to her to try and give her a hug. Almost out of nowhere, she grabs a knife by the sink. Initially, I thought she was just going to hold it to try and tell me to leave. She doesn't. She comes at me full force, aiming towards my face.
No, she
I
doesn't,
tell her to
bro.
stop. She doesn't. I tried grabbing the knife, but ended up cutting my hands. After a few cuts, I lost it. I freaked out. I was scared and in a state of shock. Never in 100 years did I think she would use a knife against me.
You're lying!
Out of shock and fear, I grab one. I hit her with it, almost blindly, a few times. I didn't know what happened. I was confused, shocked, and scared. I had no intentions of that happening. When I left, I honestly thought she just passed out. Then I looked at the blood and started.
See, bro? See, this is where I know you're fucking... This is where I know you're a fucking idiot. I started freaking out, just ran. Didn't know she had died. Thought she just passed out. Motherfucker, you just stabbed her a bunch of times. Obviously, she's gonna fucking die. Like, bro, what?
freaking
What kind of
out
dumb
and
shit
just
is
ran.
that, bro?
I didn't know for sure she
The
had died
fuck?
until the next day. I honestly had no intention of ever doing that to her. I was
Bro,
protecting
I
myself.
want to know if she actually stabbed
From
him.
there, he
Does
went
he
on to
even have
talk
cut
about the
marks or
amount of
anything?
regret and
Probably
sadness he
fucking
was
not.
feeling for what happened to Melinda. He also expressed his shock over the news, calling this a targeted attack. Now, on their own, these look like the words of a man desperately trying to clear his name after an accident.
Obviously.
When, in reality, every word in this post was carefully selected by Ager to make himself look as innocent as possible. For instance, he claimed that Melinda often slapped and hit him near the beginning of his story, so that it doesn't seem suspicious when he mentions it later.
Exactly,
According to
exactly.
people who knew her, Melinda was extremely sweet and had no violent tendencies. Ager also downplayed the break-in attempt, claiming he merely visited her house to talk, and even left out the part about
I
Melinda
didn't
getting a
even peep that. I
restraining
didn't
order
even peep
against him
that.
following that incident. He also mentioned that he swung his knife just a few times in self-defense, when in reality, autopsy results showed a staggering 47 different wounds on her body.
What the
Luckily,
fuck?
but-
So you're gonna sit here and say you only sliced a few times? You stabbed this bitch over 40 times. Yo, he's going to hell, bro. He's going to hell. No way. And then you sit there on Reddit and try to defend yourself, make up this whole little lie, say you didn't do it, but in reality, you know you fucking did that shit.
At this point, the police knew that he crossed the border a few hours later and was now hiding in the US. And while it did take them a few weeks to pinpoint his location, they were eventually able to arrest and charge him with the murder of his once girlfriend.
God.
Further investigation also revealed other twisted methods
Look
he
at him, look at
tried
that
to seem
fucking
more
bitch.
innocent. Like sending a message to Melinda saying, "Nice seeing you tonight. Glad we worked things out. Anyways, see you soon."
Oh, hell
Hours after
no.
committing the crime. He stood trial
tried
on
to
October
fucking-
2023,
Yo, this boy is
where the
not a
jury
genius.
concluded his motive
This
boiled
boy
down
is not a
to, "If I
genius."
can't have you, no one can." He was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after
Damn.
16 years.
Justice is served right there.
On June 7, 2019, a throwaway account made a post on the Confession subreddit claiming to be responsible for the deaths of several people. The post opened with the OP talking about his life goal 4 years ago, how he didn't get stuck in a night. The post opened with the OP talking about
Around 4 years ago, I was a vendor on the dark net. I was a relatively short-lived thing. I was just doing it because I was too lazy to get a job at the time and didn't want to settle for a 9-to-5 thing. I wanted to start my own business and use the drug money as a startup. I had been using myself for years. Along with that, I met a lot of people with in the dealing scene, and eventually started dealing myself. Ooh, okay. Had a lot of anxiety though, so I hated meeting up with people in the parking lots. I definitely didn't want anyone to know where I lived.
his life goal 4 years ago, how he didn't get stuck in a 9-to-5
So
cycle.
where's this going? Where's this
So
going?
he came up with a different business plan, selling substances. However, this really didn't work out as well as he'd hoped. He hated meeting people in person and was constantly afraid of someone finding out who he was and where he lived. But then he learned about a popular marketplace for illicit substances on the dark web and started
shit.
using that to conduct business. Things were going well, and even
do you
upgraded from
ship
selling
that
just
shit
3
out?
substances
The
to
hell?
shipping several much more potent options as well. Unfortunately, what started as a major boom for his business turned
I didn't
into
get
a
to read it.
massive disaster when he accidentally sent the wrong items for a few orders, stating, "I put all my addresses into an Excel spreadsheet along with their
Oh,
name,
fuck.
zip code, order, along with the amount. At the time, I was selling some super white powdered The was also a white powder, very similar consistency. Long story short, my Excel messed
He
up
sold
or
the
I messed
bull
up,
fentanyl.
and about 7 people's mail-in orders were filled in as fentanyl orders. They all went out. I didn't notice and kept doing my thing for a few days. After about 5 days, someone contacted me and told me their friend died from my
God.
I immediately called BS and went to check my order log and scale up how much I had of my medicine left. Well, I had about 11 grams more than I should have. I still don't know how it could have happened. I wasn't a
Holy
user,
shit.
but I definitely was high. Put simply, the OP accidentally sent a
Bro,
much harder substance.
how do you accidentally fucking do that? And then you killed 7. Actually, I don't know if it was 7. Several fucking people. Bro, that's fucking crazy.
To his customers.
Bro.
And while I can't mention its name on YouTube, it is known to be extremely lethal in even relatively small quantities. He later searched the names of these customers online and discovered that at least 5 of them had passed away due to his mistake. The sheer gravity of his
Wow.
actions prompted
5
him to
of them.
immediately abandon the drug trade and rebuild his life, stating, "I immediately deactivated my vendor account. I didn't even need
Smart thing to do.
confirmation. I knew what happened. I knew I just killed several people. I sold the rest of my drugs, converted my Bitcoin to cash, and moved away. Didn't speak to anyone
Should've
for
kept
weeks.
that shit to Bitcoin.
Found a job in a restaurant, living in a city I always wanted to. I haven't touched drugs since that day. I haven't had anything to do with that
Should have
life
fucking
since then."
kept the Bitcoin.
However, the OP ended the post by claiming that,
Trippin'.
despite getting as far away from his old life as he possibly could, the guilt of being responsible for so many lost lives still weighs heavily on him. And that the only reason he confessed everything
obviously.
on Reddit was to finally get it off his chest, hoping it might bring him some sense of relief. Now, whether this actually helped him feel any better or not is completely unknown. This was his first and last post from this account, and he hasn't posted any updates since.
This is insane.
As for if he was actually telling the truth,
You
that
never
much is
know.
uncertain. It's near impossible for me to track down any news articles about his unfortunate customers, given that over 100,000 people every year lose their lives
That's
from that
sad.
same substance. That said, many users in the comments believe the story was genuine, and some even express
Could be.
sympathy for the OP's situation. Though I doubt we'll get any concrete answer on this confession's legitimacy anytime soon.
That's fucked, bro. Damn it, I don't even know what I just pressed. Bro, that's crazy. Yo, that wraps up this video. If y'all want to see more videos like this, comment down below, like, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. So woo!